but which repels the money boys still because half the houses are owned by black people who have not yet been taxed out. They are Bahamians, Dominicans, and African Americans. The rest of the inhabitants are white people who don't mind this or positively love it. Myself, I am as indifferent to race as it is possible to be. My car is a Buick Regal in blue from 1978. Its body is pretty well rusted out, the skirts of the wheel wells having achieved the texture of autumn leaves. On the other hand, it has the V8 in there and the engine. The drivetrain and all the running gears are as tuned and as slick running as is possible for a 20-year-old machine to be. It's the kind of car you want for pulling bank jobs and getting away. Fast, reliable, anonymous. I do all the car work except the transmission myself. My dad taught me. He collected and restored cars. Still does, I suppose, although I haven't been in contact with home of late. I tell myself it is for their protection. Our apartment is above a garage, painted red brick with white trim like a barn. The front room has 2 tiny windows looking out on a driveway. The back room, where I sleep, has a big sliding glass window from which you can see a tangled hedge of cream hibiscus and pink oleander. The window is so large and the room is so small that when the window is open, it is almost like sleeping outside or in an African house. In my bedroom is a thin mattress resting on a door supported by 6 screw-on legs. I have my string hammock slung from hooks in the wall, low, so I can watch her and touch her if I wish. The rest of the furniture is junk from the garage or collected during walks around the neighborhood. Over the table is a hanging bulb and a Japanese paper globe. We have no air conditioning. A 14-inch Kmart fan blows garden air over us at night. When I moved in here, the walls were pink-orange and the floor was covered with avocado shag. I decided that if I was going to die here, I didn't want my last sensory impression to be avocado shag, and so I ripped it up and replaced it with cheap black vinyl tiles, and I painted the walls white. The walls are bare. When I was laying the tiles, I found a corner missing out of one of the 4x8 plywood sheets of the floor. I made a plywood hatch for this hole and tiled over it, and it fits so closely that you have to yank it up with a big glazier's suction cup. What I have to hide, I hide there. I found the child in a mini-mart on the east side of Dixie Highway. Sometimes at night in the summer, the sticky heat and the insect noises remind me of Africa, and I have to ride, to hear the mechanical sounds of driving and smell exhaust, the dear stench of my homeland, and feel the wind of speed on my face. I went in to get a cold drink, and she was there, filthy in ragged shorts and a torn pink T-shirt and flip-flops, standing in the aisle. She was shaking. I said to her, "Are you okay? Are you lost?" She didn't answer. The woman behind the counter was fussing with the frozen slush machine and had her back turned. I walked away to the drink console. As I reached for a cup, I heard the first slap and looked around. The mother was there, a large, tan woman in her 20s with her hair in curlers under a green print scarf. She was wearing Bermudas and a tube top that barely covered her bobbling breasts. Whoever she had once been, that person was gone, or in deep hiding, and only a demon stared out of the red-rimmed eyes. The child was holding her hand to her ear, and her face was screwed up like a piece of crumpled tin foil, but she made no sound. "What did I tell you, huh?" said the mother. She held a 40-ounce bottle of malt liquor in one hand. With the other hand, she beat the child, big roundhouse blows that knocked the little girl against a frozen food lowboy, hard enough to bounce. "What did I tell you, you stupid little bitch, huh?" Slap. "Huh? Did I tell you not to move?" Slap. "I told you not to move, didn't I?" Slap. "Wait till I get you back home. I'll fix you good." Slap. "What the fuck you looking at, bitch?" This last was directed at me. I pulled my eyes away from the scene and left. I stood with my cold hands pressed to the warm hood of my car and took deep breaths. I heard the door of the mini-mart slam open and the mother and her child merged. There was a dark alley there that led to the next street where I supposed they lived. The woman was holding her bottle slung over her wrist in its plastic carrier bag and was dragging the child along by the arm, twisting it cruelly, muttering to herself. The child was trying to relieve the pain by turning herself toward the woman, and in the process, just as they passed into the alley, the little girl fell down. The mother yelled out a curse and kicked the girl in the side. The girl curled up into a fetal position and covered her head with her pipe-cleaner arms, whereupon I ran up to them yelling, "Stop that!" The woman turned and glowered at me. "Get the fuck out of here, bitch!" I moved closer, and I could smell the sweat and the alcohol boiling off her. She took 2 staggering steps towards me and launched a clumsy overhand blow at my head. I caught her arm in a hikiteoshi and brought it around behind her back and bent her over double and marched her a few yards away and pressed her face into the gravel. I had not done any serious aikido in years, but it turned out to be something you don't forget how to do, like riding a bike. I said, "Stay here, please. I'm going to see if your little girl is all right." And I rose and walked back to where the child lay, unmoving. The mother did not stay put, but came after me in a drunken rage, cursing, and I whipped around and caught her left wrist and spun her out in a Jodan Agigama Nagiwaza. In Aikido dojos, subjects of this throw go easily into a forward roll to their right and bounce up smiling. But now, in the dark alley, the woman's 160 or so pounds were lofted at speed through the night with the force of her own charge, and her head struck the corner of the dumpster parked there with a dreadful final sound. Thick blood from an angular dent in her head, and a dark stain was spreading along the center seam of her Bermudas. She was as still as the loaded trash bags that surrounded her. I went to the child and took her hand. She came willingly with me, and we got in my car and rolled. As I drove, I looked back into the sickly light of the mini-mart window and saw that the proprietor was still messing with the disassembled pieces of her slush machine. She had never looked at me. I had touched nothing in the store. I asked the child what her name was, but she didn't answer. By the time we passed Dadeland, she was asleep. I learned what her name was the next morning in the Miami Herald, a 4-inch story on the first page of the Metro section. Marina Davis, 26, had died in an alley behind a mini-mart at 14230 Dixie Highway. The police believed that she had stumbled while drunk and struck her head, fracturing her skull and breaking her neck. Death was instantaneous. Authorities were concerned about the woman's daughter, Luz, age 4, who was seen in the mini-mart moments before the accident. A police search of the immediate area was unsuccessful. Anyone having information about the child is urged to call. I have a good understanding of nutrition, since a female anthropologist will necessarily have much to do with women out in the field, and the women universally feed the tribe. I talked to Luz in a low, comforting voice, discussing the various items for our dinner and how they help us grow big and strong. She seems interested, if hesitant. I doubt she has had much experience with conversation, and the visit to the mini-mart that I observed the night I met her was probably a typical shopping expedition. I open a package of ginger snaps and offer her one, which she shyly accepts and eats with a deliberation that is painful to watch. She watches. Her senses are alert. She's a member of a tiny subculture of Americans, one in which the parents murder their children, usually before the age of 5, and so I can't really expect her to respond as others do. She stays with me while I prepare the meal, watching, on a chair. Since I took her, we have not been out of sight of one another. We even leave the bathroom door open, a little bit like life in an African village. I cut up her fish and squish her potato up with butter and salt. She seems unfamiliar with any implements other than the spoon. I suspect finger foods and cereal have constituted the bulk of her diet when she got a diet at all. I demonstrate the use of the fork, and she imitates me. She eats slowly and finishes every bit on her plate. Ice cream seems to be a revelation. She finishes a scoop, and when I ask her if she wants more, she nods solemnly. After dinner, I wash up and I place her on a chair. While I wash, I sing a little song the Olo women sing when they pound karite nuts. It has an almost infinite number of verses. I suppose I learned a few hundred in my time there. I often run them through my head at work, as I have found nothing better to pass the time during a necessary but tedious occupation. I work as a medical records clerk, a job that compares in many ways to pounding karite nuts. The child drops a cup on the floor with a clatter. I stoop to retrieve it, and I see that she has thrown her arms over her head and is cringing, bent-kneed, awaiting the blow. I approach her carefully, speaking softly. I tell her it doesn't matter. It's just a cup. The handle is broken off, but we can use it as a flower pot. She lets me stroke her hair and hug her, although she's stiff in my arms like a store mannequin. My landlady is divorced and lives with her 2 kids and a German Shepherd mix named Jake in the house of which my garage is an outbuilding. Her name is Polly Rivera.